Vice President JD Vance reminding us why he's really just not very good at this, and the total lack of charisma and gravitas really makes him come off horribly. I don't know how else to say it. He appeared on the Joe Rogan program, made some stunning admissions, admitted we screwed up, or they screwed up at least about one thing. And it is very interesting to see him sort of musing about different topics and being increasingly unlikable, but also seemingly incompetent. Here is Vance in the way he does, where it just comes off as so pathetic, musing about how Joe Biden eats ice cream. How Biden eats ice cream. This is the vice president of the United States. He might be the only person in the world who thinks Biden eating ice cream was sending sexual messages.
The thing I couldn't get over Biden is just bad staff work, man. The way that he ate ice cream. I mean, it's like, we could bring some of this stuff up, but it's like they would get him eating ice cream in the most ridiculous, suggestive way imaginable.
This is like when this is like when Tucker Carlson was saying that some of the newly styled M&Ms aren't, or was it Skittles? I think it was M&Ms. They're not attractive enough anymore. And we're all kind of like, who else is thinking about that? And similarly, JD Vance goes, oh my God, Joe Biden's ice cream eating was just so suggestive, so suggestive. JD, I don't think anybody else was thinking about that. Rogan floats one of his ideas. Most people believe Jeffrey Epstein was Mossad. And JD Vance kind of plays it up and goes, yeah, Mossad or CIA, or he clearly had some kind of connections there. What is JD talking about?
I mean, I have theories. There's of course
Well, most people think he was Mossad.
Yeah, Mossad or CIA or some other deep state, whether in America or Israel or another country, or both.
I think Vance knows none of this stuff is true, but he still pushes the same lines from the Kremlin about Epstein.
Look, he clearly had connections to the highest levels of American intelligence. He clearly had connections to the highest levels of Israeli intelligence. In fact, one of the interesting things the Epstein saga reveals about, and I try to make this point, is one of the reasons why I'm always careful, and I say there are some elements within the Israeli government who don't like our peace process, because there are a lot of elements within the Israeli government that actually do like our peace process. They recognize that this indefinite campaign is not good for them either. And the Epstein thing is interesting because as much as I know, Prime Minister Netanyahu, not a particularly popular person in the United States of America right now, Epstein seemed to be connected to the elements of the Israeli deep state that were left of center.
It's so weird to hear the sitting vice president talk about the deep state. It's like, dude, if the deep state exists, you're the deep state. What are you talking about? And then I think he makes the admission that is the most likely to anger Trump from this entire interview, which is, hey, you know what? We did mishandle the release of the Epstein files. And what's interesting about this is that it's widely documented that JD was saying all along, this stuff is going to come out. We've got to release all of it. And it's been widely written about, including by Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan in their book Regime Change. And what JD says here, I actually do believe is what he genuinely thinks.
Yes, but if people want to say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty. We did mishandle, especially the communications of it.
What do you think should have been done?
I think that we should have just dropped everything at the very beginning. And obviously it takes a little time to review the stuff, to find the stuff, to redact things where you have victims and so forth. But we should have just done it as quickly as possible.
I don't have much of a commentary here other than to say this has been a growing disagreement. Two of the big disagreements between Vance and Trump that have been documented significantly are Vance wasn't on board with trying to hide and cover up and selectively release Epstein files. Vance is on record based on reporting that, and now he's saying it personally. At the time, he was just like, it's going to come out. Let's just get it all out. And then there's so much stuff. We can just kind of do damage control as to the specifics. And second area of agreement, Vance did not think that the Iran war was a good idea. Now, he still works for the president and he went out there and he defended it. But that's the topic we get to next, which is really interesting, which is Vance explains, if you're going to do military stuff, you need a very clear objective. Military power can do a lot of stuff, but just doing stuff has to serve some objective. And it's sort of interesting because what's happening is we have strikes on and off for unclear reasons. an administration that has shifted 4 to 5 times the whole reason for doing this Iran thing. And Vance's critique really does apply to Iran, even though that's not what he's saying here.
They think that America should just, that we can basically, you can wave a magic wand with the military and accomplish whatever you want. And, you know, it's not that simple. You actually have to have a very clear objective. Military power can accomplish a clear objective, but you've got to have that clear objective. You can't just say, we're going to bomb until something good happens. That never works. The United States has tried that before. They think that America should just...
All right. I sort of agree with him. It's just tragic and funny that that's not what's happening with Iran. The strikes are on, the strikes are off. The point is nuclear. The point is regime change. The point is ballistic missile capability. The reality is that Vance is totally against the war in Iran. And I don't say this as praise of JD. He's an isolationist, and isolationism has pros and cons. But he has to be supportive of it because he's vice president, and extensive reporting about that. And he kind of acknowledges he has no idea about the objectives, even though he's pretending that they do. When he says, I don't know exactly where this is going to go. We're on the right track, but I don't know where it's going. Well, you're kind of saying that you don't really know what the point of it is.
And I guess my summary view, Joe, is that I, of course, can't predict the future. I don't know exactly where this is going to go. But I think fundamentally we are on the right trajectory. It's just going to be really messy, and there's going to be a lot of stops and starts. And I
Exactly. Stops and starts, and I don't know where it's going. That means you don't really know what the point of all of it is. He's sort of acknowledging the most important part, which is, what are the objectives? Like, I don't know. We're kind of going in the right direction. I think we'll figure it out, but I don't really exactly know. Finally, JD says that he really has been meaning to look into the UFO thing, but he just doesn't have the time. Notice that he is saying this while on a 3-hour-long podcast episode.
And a lot of it, like the UFO thing, like I've said that I'm going to look into the UFO thing. And I've been saying that for a year and a half, and I haven't done it yet because I haven't had the time.
He's just really busy traveling to Austin, Texas to spend 3 hours doing the Joe Rogan program. Sorry, JD, I'm just not really buying it. And really, really the last thing from JD, he talks about the cool problem that Republicans have. They're not that cool.
Republicans still fundamentally have a cool problem, right? There's something more charismatic, more cool about the Democrats as opposed to the right.
Did I say that?
So you said something about there are too many dorks or something on the right.
There's a lot of dorks.
You know, fair. I'd say there's a lot of dorks
There's
on the left.
a lot of dorks on
whatever.
the left, too.
But
It's a different kind of dork.
It's a different kind of dork. But the point is that there's something, you know, like, okay, if you're a pop star, you're a rock star, you're an actor, you're in all these cultural centers, you're more likely to be left than right. And so I think that a lot of young people who are attracted to these population centers, they sort of move along with the prevailing culture. I think that's one thing that's going on.
Why would anyone think JD isn't really cool and fun to hang around? I don't know why anybody would have that impression. The Rogan interviews are interesting because no matter what Rogan does, if you give uncharismatic people with no interesting and original ideas 3 hours, you're giving them a lot of rope to hang themselves, and that is exactly what happened here. Thanks for watching. Check out this other video, and if you like our content, make sure to subscribe so YouTube puts our videos in your feed, and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple.